Hi, today I'm going to show you how you can build a real native mobile app using WeWeb and how you can distribute it to the App Store. So the cool thing about WeWeb is it is a no-code way to build Vue.js applications. And if you already built your web application using WeWeb, you can now turn it not just into a PWA, which they also already support. You can turn it into a real native mobile app that has full access to the native device functionalities, from Face ID to in-app purchases to all that cool stuff, and you can distribute it to the App Store, and you will definitely meet the minimum functionality requirements because Despia is going to turn your WeWeb web application into a real native mobile application in Swift or Java that is over 2,000 files. So it definitely will meet any minimum functionality, minimum code requirements, and you have access to most of the native SDKs of the device that PWAs don't have access to, because Despia is a real native mobile app. And you got also push notifications. But let's get started with the basic setup, and let's get a WeWeb app sent to the App Store, and let's add some native functionality. So the first step is you want to go to Despia.com and create your account. That's the framework that is going to convert your WeWeb web application into a hybrid mobile application. Now, I'm right now at the dashboard page, and I want to create a new project. Let's go on plus here, and I'm going to call this app WeWeb. Here you go. Now I need a start URL to my WeWeb application. Now you probably want to put your live app URL in here, but now I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to publish this. Oh, and let's publish that. Oh, let's call this 123. I'm going to publish my WeWeb application. And WeWeb is always taking a long time to publish things. So how about we just make a little cut? Okay, it finally published it. So let's open this. Here you go. Now I have my WeWeb application. It just doesn't do anything. It's just a button with no functionality. I'm just going to copy that though. And we are going to go back to Despia. And I'm going to put this as the start URL, right? The start URL is where you want your app to start. I have my bundle ID that is kind of like the domain name, the unique name for my application that is sent to the app stores. And then I just go and create my application here. And now you can see I got that application, and maybe I want to add a background color to my WeWeb project. Look at that. Oh, that's my Xamarin database. That's not supposed to happen. Let's go back to WeWeb here because I probably want to add a background to that section. So let's go in here and let's go to colors, and let's go, where's background color? Outline, background, here you go. Background color, oh, no formula. Oops, no, let's unbind that. Reset style, I want to make this white. Here you go. Let's deploy this again, and then we'll just wait again. And now it's going to update that. But in the meantime, let's continue with the configuration. So I do have that app inside of here, and we have the icon. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to upload an app icon. For that, we need a PNG. I already have a PNG prepared. So let's drop this in here. Now, as you can see, we uploaded the app icon. I can close this now. And now we want to add the splash screen. We already have the background white, and the splash screen needs to be a GIF. So we'll just drag this in here. Oh, maybe we want to click on it. Let's click on here, and then we'll drag it on here. Beautiful. Now we're done, and then we can make it a little bit bigger. That looks nice. Now we got the splash screen for our mobile application. If you are using OneSignal, you can just simply put OneSignal, your app ID inside of here, and you have push notifications enabled. We already have a video about that. I would highly suggest you to check that out. And then we can say maybe we want Face ID when we open the app. We want the app to only open if our face is validated. I can check that if I want that. I can then customize the offline screen to my liking if I want, which, you can do no code. You can type that in here, change some of the things, use AI to edit that, but we'll just keep it by default here. It's pretty nice. And then I can say I want those URLs to always open in the browser. I want those to never open in the browser. I want those to always open in the app to improve that. Maybe if you use social auth, you want to say, no, always do those in app so it's a better experience. Then we have, the light and dark mode themes. In this example, let's reload and see actually if WeWeb already updated the interface. Yeah, we probably want to change the status bar color because we only have one mode here. So we want to go to light and dark mode themes, and I want to say the light mode background color should be white. The dark mode background color should also be white because we will not support dark mode in this example. And then the text on both should be black, so it is always the same. Now, you can adjust this if you work with light or dark mode, but to keep this video simple, we're just going to go with a basic example. Then we want to say the mobile should always be portrait. You can also say landscape or auto if you want them to rotate it, but I'll just keep portrait. And the tablet, because yes, Despia can also build iPad and Android tablet apps, we want it to be auto, so they can have it like this and like this. And then I say prevent to sleep, I don't want that. And maybe if you want pull to refresh, you can also support pull to refresh, but I don't think we'll need that, but doesn't hurt. But, in this example, I just keep it disabled. Then if you have pull to refresh, you probably want to adjust the background color too, according to your dark mode, which we don't have, so both should be white. And then we have the light mode spinner, and the dark mode spinner should probably be black. Let's make that black. Here we go. And then we'll just keep those things. We want to collect app feedback to improve our App Store reviews. We want to have maybe native swipe navigation, and then we don't want the user to zoom in. Maybe if you want your app to be more accessible, you may want to support zooming in, but I don't think we need it in this example. So that is basically it. That is the configuration of the app itself. Now, if you look at the other side here, those are the native SDKs that you can call to trigger native functionality inside of your WeWeb application. And that is pretty cool. So, we'll be setting those up right now. So what is something that we can show that is pretty simple for a video? Because haptic feedback will be probably a bad one because you can't feel it. Social share will be maybe a cool one, but you can do that in the browser API too. It's not unique. Let's do something cool. Let's do a push notification, and then I'll show you how that will work. So we'll take a local push notification. I'll be copying this code snippet here to make a local push notification. I'm going back to WeWeb, and I'm going to go on my button. I'm going to go on workflows. I'm going to create a new workflow, and we can say local push. Local push in this example. And I'm going to call, actually, that's the name of the workflow. So we'll call this local push. And then we'll say send local push notification. Now, you do have remote, so you can call our API to send push notifications. This is just a simple client-side example of local push notifications, meaning you run a piece of JavaScript to trigger a push notification when the app is closed at a scheduled time. But let's add that action in here. And we're just going to add custom JavaScript. We're going to edit the code. And we can give it a name. We can say Despia SDK. Despia push SDK. I'm going to go to custom JS. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. I'll put my custom JS in here. And now we can make those things dynamic, but we don't have to. We could use variables here, right? And add our variables, but in this example, I don't think we need that. But actually, let me give you an example with variables. Let's close the workflow real quick, and we'll just hard code a variable. So we go to the data panel in WeWeb, and we'll create a variable called name. And then we'll do default value Mike. Here you go. We'll close that. Then we'll go back to our button with a native trigger. Here you go. Go back to the button. We'll go back to the local push workflow. We'll go back to our JavaScript SDK. We'll go and edit the code. Here you go. And then I can say title we'll say Despia local push. That's good. We'll keep that. It's just an example. The URL, it should open our app. So we'll just add our deep link because Despia supports deep linking. So if you go to export iOS project, you'll see your deep link. The same deep link is also available for Android. It's just, we just made a strange design decision here. But we just put that deep link in here so it opens the app. If you wanted to open a link, feel free to change that. And then you want to have the message. The message should include the user's name. So I'm going to say, hello, space, in a quote, and then I add plus, and I add the name. That will add the name variable. Then I add plus. We just wanted to let you know that we miss you. Here you go. We'll add a smiley in there. Here you go. So we'll do hey, and then we'll add the variable. We just wanted to let you know that we miss you. And then the URL, it opens the app, and then it calls the Despia SDK using, actually, the way your web app will communicate with the native device is actually using URL schemes, which is for mobile apps a common way to talk to each other. But we do have that defined, and I want to trigger this after 10 seconds of closing that app. You probably want to maybe have a day, so 86,000 something. But, you know, this is just an example, and we don't have a day to wait for this video, so we want to make it as quick as possible. So we got that. That is pretty much everything we need to add native functionality to our WeWeb application. So now I can just close this. We can test this. It seems like that was successful. I should get a console error, actually, saying this is not a valid URL scheme. Let's see if that works. It does work. Maybe it's just a different way how they debug things. But it should work. Here you go. We'll double check that. Local push succeeded. It ran that code. That looks good. So let's close this. And now what we want to do is we want to deploy this. So I'm going to publish my WeWeb. I say push. I'm going to publish this. This is how we add native iOS functionality, native Android functionality, native device functionality inside of our WeWeb web application. It's not a web application anymore. Now it's a real native mobile application. So now when I go back to Despia, I could now just export the code just like that. And now I would need to pay. So, oh, that's new. Secure by Lemon Squeezy. Oh, they did change the UI completely. Let me just pay for that. So now after paying, I can click on Export iOS Project, and I will be able to export the code. And the cool thing about exporting the code is with Despia, you own your source code. There's nobody who owns your source code. You can make changes to the code base yourself if you want. You can give it to a developer, extend functionalities if we're not shipping things fast enough for you. And that's a beautiful thing. You have access to everything. You own the code that it generates. That's your, that's yours. You bought it, right? So we got the zip file. And if I open that zip file here, I'll get a folder. And I just suggest rename that folder, add your app name in there, WeWeb v1 as an example, so it gets easier to find, especially if you work with multiple Despia apps. You open that folder, and this is if you have a Mac computer. We can also do it over the cloud with TestFlight. I'm going to show you that too. But first, I want to show you how cool it is, because as you can see, it's a real native mobile application. Your logo is right in here. We do have all those files. Of course, it uses a WK Web View to render this, but there are about 2,000 files inside of here, and they have access to the native device. It is a native mobile app. It's 70% faster than most of the competitors that provide similar technology, but they don't have access to the native device. We do have that, and that's what it makes it different. And also, we do a lot of magic when it comes to rendering your HTML inside of a mobile app that makes it undistinguishable from a real mobile app, because it is Swift, it is real. So we'll open the workspace file, and now you see the magic where you actually build a real native iOS app, and you have the ownability. We won't give you like the APK or the IPA. Those are already packaged files. What we give you is the raw source code, the binary that you can edit yourself, which I don't know anybody in the competitor industry that does it like that, because this gives you the full ownability to make changes to really own your code. So we want to change in here the target to be app. So I click on app on the target. I'm going to build the app now by clicking on plus. Make sure you have Xcode installed on your computer. That's all I have to do. I can, it'll take a little bit. I can see it's building thousands of files. It's doing all that kind of stuff. That's how you know it's a real native mobile application. And now I just lean back and, watch the show, have a little coffee maybe in the meantime. And it will build everything now locally on your computer. If you don't have a Mac computer, we'll have an alternative for that. But now I just opened the simulator. And now you see you have your native WeWeb mobile application now running on a simulated iPhone using Despia. And we'll have native functionality to that. Now, the first time you just built your app and it opens it on your virtual iPhone, it'll be super slow. But that is not because the app is slow. That is because you're kind of like simulating an iPhone in your computer. And now, as you can see, we do have Face ID enforced in our app. Remember how we set that up? Let's look at this. That's why it's a real native mobile application. That's why the App Store loves Despia. Allow WeWeb to track your activity across other companies. We'll allow that. There's even a way inside of Despia how you can run a piece of JavaScript to see if the user consented to this or not, to have a super compliant experience. And we put security first, and you have access to those things, and that's what makes it special. Now it says you want us to allow push notifications. We'll allow that. And now I can't open the app unless I validated my password or my Face ID. In the simulator, you won't have Face ID, so we'll have the password in here. Put my password in here, and now it opens the WeWeb app. It says, thank you for downloading. I got the WeWeb app. Let's trigger the native functionality and close the app and wait for the push notification to pop up. Let's hope that works, actually. Let's see, let's put it down. And here you go. We got the native push notification. I can open it. It opens the app. Now, I should probably add a little bit of space in here. But, that is it. That is how easy that works. And you can also look for the user agent inside of WeWeb, which is also pretty cool. So you can look for the user agent. This will tell you in WeWeb, if this is an iOS device, what kind of a device this is. And with that, you just run basic JavaScript. I could actually show you how to do that. I need to ask Claude though. We'll say Claude, and let's say make JS to log the user agent. Or actually, we can actually ask WeWeb's AI for that. So we'll go to WeWeb again, and with that user agent, we could then add a style variable and kind of like change that styling. But I just want to show you how to get the user agent, because that's also something that is important. So we would create a variable, for example, here. We call this user agent as an example. And then default value is minus or whatever. And then we'll make a workflow. So we would go in here and we would go on actions on the page. We'll create a page workflow, right? We have on execution. And here you go. And we'll add custom JavaScript. And then in here, we'll go to edit code. And we'll say set the WeWeb variable user agent to the devices user agent using navigator dot user agent from the browser API. We'll generate that. We'll generate the custom code in WeWeb, and now we'll get that code. It's getting the user agent, and then it returns the WeWeb variable. It's critical to finish your code with a return statement, otherwise the script will not be executed. So we got that code. It does the user agent, navigator.userAgent. It'll get that. It will get the user agent. For some reason, it does that, which I don't think is necessary. We could just simplify the code a little bit. We could just make return navigator to user agent. I love how AI complicates code. We could just do this in WeWeb, and then we have that returned, right? So we'll close that, and we'll test this. And this will give me the user agent, and then I just name this. I name this action. I say user agent, right? User agent. And I then set my variable. So I do change variable value, and I'd say variable that will be user agent. The value will be bound to my workflow item from the user agent. That's how I log the user agent to the variable. So we have that workflow here. Let's double check that workflow should be, yeah, that is the, page workflow. So let's actually rename that. Let's call this set user agent. Here you go. We'll close that. And that's basically it. So now I want to deploy that again. It'll take a little bit. WeWeb is pretty slow with those things. And we'll just call this user agent. We'll publish that. And then we'll wait a little bit. And then we'll see that, oh, actually, I should probably have some text in there so we can see it. But this is actually how you get access to the user agent in a variable. And then you can use this to change your logic. And the cool thing is Despia is overriding the user agent, so you can figure out if your WeWeb app is rendered in the Despia mobile app or in the browser, and then change your styling based on that. So you can have one code base for everything, and you don't have to maintain two different apps, one in Flutterflow, one in DraftBit, and one in WeWeb, and just make yourself way more work than you actually need to. And you do have access to all those native functionalities. Just look at all those options: biometric auth, haptic feedback, in-app purchases, social share, getting the device ID. That's actually something cool. I want to show you that. There's so many cool things. But oh, that's the wrong thing. And we'll go back in here. We'll go back to WeWeb. Here you go. And that was published. So the cool thing is we already have the simulator. The only thing I need to do, I actually want to update one thing. Let's go on layout here. Right? Let's click on the button. Let's go on layout. Oh, layout, yeah. And then I just want to add text. So we'll just add text. And then I make this text dynamic. So I go here. And I go to the text. And I map this with the user agent. So now we see the user agent is not defined. Now I want to deploy this app again. So it publishes it. And then we say user agent. We'll publish this. And that's how we will be logging the user agent, so we see if this is rendered in our Despia mobile application, our real native mobile application, or in our web application. Then we can adjust the workflows in WeWeb based on conditions, depending on if it is or not. So if we were to open this WeWeb app here, we would, oh, it's not triggering the workflow. Maybe I set something up wrong, because it does work, but I forgot how you do these things on page. You got your workflow here. That's a global workflow. I probably want to create an on-load workflow. On execution. We got my parameters. Okay, I haven't been at WeWeb for a while. So we'll see. Let's go to the section, to actions, data, all pages new. Let's look this up. WeWeb on page load workflow. We'll look at that. Global workflows on page load. We'll look at that, their documentation. Here we go. Yeah, that's how I remember the UI looked. On page load, we'll click on pages. And then we do trigger workflows. Okay, we do this on the page. Let's look at that. So we'll go to WeWeb. We are on the page. Trigger page workflows. Here you go. We'll create a new page workflow. I think I may create a reusable workflow. let's look at that again. What was it, like user? No. So we'll just do this again. So we'll run JavaScript, custom JavaScript, and we'll go on edit code. And then we're going to make return navigator.user agent. So we'll do navigator.user agent. We'll return this. Here you go. And we'll call this user agent. Here you go. We'll run this. We'll get the user agent. We'll add an action to set the variable, change variable value. We'll take the variable user agent. The value will be what we ran in the workflow above in the custom JavaScript. Now that should work. So now actually let's try reloading the WeWeb editor, which is usually takes a little bit. Here you go. And now I get the user agent. Now you see this is how it looks if you get it from the browser. Now Despia has a specific way how it sends you the user agent. So let's look at how this looks inside of the mobile app, because it's overriding that so that you can determine if this is rendered in your mobile app or not, and then you can adjust your logic to have everything in one code base. So we'll do that. And I mean, the last time I used WeWeb, that was probably like a year ago or something. So they did change a lot of things. I do like their new UI and all the cool stuff. It seems like a great way of building mobile apps now with Despia. We'll wait a little bit, but loading is still, it used to be worse. I used to be like, I'm used to 5-minute loading times, but they did make it way faster. So we'll close the mobile app here, and we'll close a lot of mobile apps. We'll open them. Now we gotta validate, right? So I'll put that in here. By the way, in the simulator, you can put in anything and it'll always be successful unless you click return. And now we see the user agent is Despia iPhone. On iPad, it will be Despia iPad. On Android, it will be Despia minus Android. So if your user agent includes Despia, you'll be then able to adjust your logic based on if it includes Despia. You can make a simple validation in WeWeb to check that out. And then you can funnel that in a conditional statement to have different logic on mobile if you want. On your native mobile app, different logic on your WeWeb PWA, and completely different logic on your WeWeb web application. So you can have proprietary logic on your mobile application if you need to. That is unique. And that will be able to, that is a big lifesaver, right? That's how it makes those things easier. Now, maybe you want to get some data from the device. Now, the question is, and Despia actually has a great way of solving that, how are we getting device data and getting the data that is native on the device into WeWeb? Now, we have a cool way of doing that using our schematic APIs. So let me show you how that works. Let's actually create another variable, and then we'll do another on-page workflow. So I will create a new variable. I will call this variable device ID, because every device, we'll do device ID. Every device has a unique identifier number where you can say, hey, this is iPhone 1, this is iPhone 2. And if the owner changes, you'll still be able to track the device ID. It'll always stay the same. Now, here's the thing. Maybe if you build a mobile application, you want to prevent account sharing like Netflix does. With Despia, you can do that because you will be able to have access to the unique device ID. And you'll be able then to log this in your database to prevent abuse of your mobile application and account sharing. So we can set device ID inside of here, and then the default value will just be empty. So right now it is empty. That is beautiful. So we can close this now. We got the device ID, and now we'll create another on-page workflow. I go to my pages, I go to trigger page workflows, and I create a new workflow here. This one I actually should name, let's say, get device ID. Beautiful. Now in here, again, we'll run our JavaScript, custom JavaScript. It's one line, it's super simple. And then we'll call this get device ID. And now I'm going to go to edit code. In here, I go to my Despia SDK. This is how it works for all things that give you dynamic data back. So in here, we'll copy the first line because the second line is a JavaScript variable that is already defined on the device. So we'll just need to run the first line. Whenever we have a console log, we want the second line to be in a set variable if we use WeWeb. In total, it's a little bit simpler because we do already have a package for that. But maybe, who knows, one day WeWeb sees this video and they want us to build a native integration for that too. That would be great too. We will be open to that. But we'll put this line in here. What this line is doing, it's calling the Despia API on the device and defining and initiating the process to get that device ID on, the code that runs on the 2000 native files. So that's what we do. We run this one line JavaScript. That's all we got to do. Then second line will be set variable. We'll change the variable value and we'll take the device ID variable and then we'll bind this device ID variable. And actually I can't bind it to custom code, or can I? No, I can't. So my bad, we need to go back to the custom code and change it a little bit. I need to go to the custom code and add return UUID. Here you go. Let's look at our documentation again for that. Yes, I return UUID. That is what we have in a console log, and you want to turn it into a return if you use it in a WeWeb workflow, so that workflow will have a value, right? So we'll close that, and then I go to change device, change variable value. I would run this. This would actually fail only in the editor, but don't get discouraged by that. So now we would go in here actually to make it work. We need to change it a little bit. I'm just going to make or in JavaScript 1, 2, 3 sample. So we can have a sample when we work with it in the editor. So in this example here, I can run this. Oh, let's try that. There happened before, happened during the execution of the workflow. UID is not defined. Let's have their AI, let's say return UUID var if defined and sample 1, 2, 3 if not. If not. And we'll have their AI do that. We'll run this again. Beautiful. If type of doesn't equal undefined, then return UUID, check if UUID. Pretty cool. We'll remove the comments so nobody will know we used AI to do this. We'll return that. That looks good. Let's try running this. Yeah, and we did log the sample here. So we go to the workflow that sets the variable. We edit our formula, and we will bind this to the response here from the get device ID action. So we bound it here, and then we should run this whole thing too, and we see we have sample 1 to 3 as our device ID logged. So that is our on-page workflow. Let's also rename the other one. This is get user agent. And then we see Despia, when it renders it in the Despia framework, we'll see that it was rendered in Despia. Then we do have the get device ID. What the cool thing is, think about it like this. You have code in your WeWeb application that talks to the native device and in lightning speed gets that variable sent back, so it can then get that data from the device inside of your application, in your WeWeb application. So the logic that you run in your mobile app is all happening on WeWeb, the tool that you already know and love. That's the cool thing. Let's close that. So we'll just add another text in here. Please don't judge my bad UI skills. But now we just make that text dynamic. We'll bind it to the device variable. And in here, this is sample 1, 2, 3. Oh, where did it go? Let's look at that again. We got that text in here, right? And that should be bound to, let's try that again, to sample. Here you go, sample 1, 2, 3. Let's deploy this and publish this. And we'll call this get device ID. We'll publish that. And now we're going to start the initiation process. It's going to build that. It's building that application. Takes a little bit with WeWeb always, but it is a great tool to build beautiful native mobile apps now. Here you go. Now it's going to load that, and think about the possibilities. You are right now logging data that is on the native device stored locally inside, that is only available in Swift, inside of your web application, and then you can process it with workflows and logic that you build inside of WeWeb that trigger native device functionality and get data that is natively available to the device. So when I open that app here, I authenticate, and as you can see, I have sample 1 to 3. Maybe there's something wrong with that's fun. Maybe there's something wrong with our code that the AI generated, because it should work. We'll double check on that. Let's here you go. Let's go on our page again, because I think maybe the return statement is funky. Let's go on trigger page workflow, and we'll go on get device ID, and we'll edit that in here, because right now if I just return the JavaScript variable of UUID, it should return the UUID. If not, we can bound it to the window and then return it from the window. That would be also a possibility, but we'll see. You know, maybe we gotta be creative here. Let's just return UUID though, and then deploy this again. Because the UUID variable will be available across the page as a JavaScript variable. But maybe with WeWeb, we need to attach it to the window. That is our last chance of hope if it doesn't work. And then we can always attach it, worst case, to the window, and then get it from the window into where we want it to be, into our variable. But I do think maybe there's something wrong with the condition. But we'll see. Let's close the app. Let's open this. We'll authenticate. We'll enter that. And yeah, we're not getting that. So I do think we probably want to define this to the window, because we do have probably WeWeb wrapping our code in a function, and then we have it in another function. That's when it gets lost. So what we want to do here is we want to update our workflow code a little bit. Let's get the device ID here, and let's go back to our custom code. Okay, beautiful. Okay, we'll have UUID. Let's have WeWeb generate code. Let's say set window dot data store. Maybe let's make something that's not proprietary. Let's do window dot WeWeb Despia. You know, you can go as creative as you want. Set window dot WeWeb Despia dot, what are we setting here? Dot device ID to 1, 2, 3. Here you go. If type of window equals undefined, and then it's setting that, return the updated window ID. That's how we got that. Okay, beautiful. Okay, here you go. Now we set this now to be UUID, so this is immediately available to us. We need to run this in one function, because WeWeb splits it up in multiple functions. That's kind of like what always happens with those no-code tools. But in here we say we define that, and then we will return this, which is okay. We will then be able to return the window itself, and then we'll be able to log that one. So now we need to run the code. If not, we can also run the code on the page. And maybe we possibly also have a loading, a timing issue. This can always happen with no-code tools, but we'll see. Let's, where to get a Despia go? / dashboard. We'll go back to our WeWeb application here. Beautiful. And then we are going to go to, where did it go? Getting the device ID. So we need to log this to initiate that code. Here you go. We'll do window.despia. Here you go. Equals get device ID. I assume maybe we want to add a little sleep to this. That could happen too. So let's say I want a 0 I want a 10 millisecond sleep here before the next lines run. We'll copy that code, right? And we'll put it back into WeWeb's AI. We'll put that in here. Sometimes a little sleep works wonders. Here you go, a little nap. Beautiful. So we get the UUID, it does the code, it does it beautifully. Then we'll have a function to sleep for a given millisecond, and then it runs that. It runs an async function. It sets that to the window, the sample UUID using a mock value. It should be, though, our JavaScript variable of UUID, which will be defined by the Despia framework. And then we're going to return a window, and it's also setting this on the window, right? It's setting the window here, as you can see. Beautiful. So that seems like a good example that could be working. And it does set it. It sets it to nothing, but it does set it. And then in here, when we set that variable, we see now we return the window in here, which is right now undefined, but we do return that. So let's see if that works. And then we can just deploy this. And we're going to publish that. Let's say window device ID. Now I think I should probably make like a Notion sheet saying this is the custom code you should be using for WeWeb, so it works better with WeWeb. I think we need to do more on that. But it's good that we figure those things out together here, and you get like a you can look into the process. But we'll look at this again, and we'll open the app. Oh, now I can type. And no, I don't want to rate it. But it doesn't lock the device ID, which is very interesting. I do think we have some challenges how WeWeb gets some of the callback. That is actually pretty simple to run in other frameworks and languages. So let's try something more simpler. I do think I'm actually curious how it does package those things. Let's go in here. We'll open our workflow to get the device ID, right? And I want to try a few things. It should be available, but I think I can add a time delay. Let's just debugging 101 milliseconds. Let's do 500 milliseconds time delay. And then can I do an alert? Let's just do custom JavaScript real quick, and we'll add an alert. So we'll do alert logging data. Here you go. We got the JavaScript. We got the alert. Here you go. And then we do get device ID. In here, we'll do a more traditional approach. So what are we doing is we're going to run the Despia SDK. And I want to see how it, maybe if it gets lost. So we'll do alert UUID. So we'll do alert UUID. I want to see if that UUID gets locked. Now, if I were to run this, login data. In this example here, I do have, let's open that. I do an alert with UUID. Maybe I want to define it as a const, so I can do const device ID equals UUID. And I'm going to lock device ID, so have it defined earlier so nothing gets lost. Here you go. We'll try that. We'll close. We'll deploy. And then actually we want to maybe get rid of all the other junk. In here, we're setting the variable. We can skip those things, I would say, for now. We're logging the data. Actually, one back. I deleted the wrong one. What happened here? Why can't I go back? Okay, we'll delete this one. So we got, actually I can't go back like this. Okay, so we'll go here. We got the code. We got the alert. Now we're adding more custom JavaScript. custom JavaScript in here. Now we go back to the Despia SDK. And we'll just making the console log into an alert. And I do think we probably need a timeout just because of how it runs in WeWeb. So we'll do alert. And now I just want a basic timeout. So let's ask Claude actually this time. Here you go. Claude, let's say, make a basic JS timeout. Here you go. It's going to give us like an, here you go. We'll copy that and we'll get that back to WeWeb. Oops, here you go. Put that in here. And then we'll put this alert in the timeout. We'll just do a very conservative one. We'll have like a 3 seconds and then we'll just go down with it. But here we go. We run that function. We'll initiate that data and then we get that UUID. That should be it. And I want to see, maybe I assume something may get lost in translation here. So when we run this, you know, we should be getting that if it would be defined. So that is it. I think everything is saved here. Let's double check. Yep, that looks good. We'll deploy this again. We'll say alert. We'll publish this. And we are going to try with this, you know, working with this again. We'll see. It's building, it's building, it's building. Here you go. And then we'll close this app here. We'll open the app again. We'll put the Face ID stuff. Now it's logging data. We'll see. And you see it did log the unique device ID. So it was, I think we're on the right track here. So you see this is how we get the data. So now we want to go back in here. We want to optimize things and see where it gets lost in translation. Because I do think maybe it was even the cons oh, no, we didn't even use the cons. So we didn't have the timeout. What if we reduce the timeout to be, 300 milliseconds? So, you know, a quarter of a second. We'll deploy the app again. And we'll see, I do think maybe with Toddle you don't need the timeouts, right? I think with Whisk you don't need to. But, you know, it's different framework and we, you know, sometimes you need to make things a little bit different. We'll make sure to update it in our documentation. So we'll say new logging. But I do think it's interesting, right? It's interesting to see how different some frameworks are and, you know, where you have to do things a little bit differently. And this shows you how, you know, simple it can be. You know, you have your simulator right next to you. You work in your favorite tool, WeWeb. And, you know, it's just cool because the nice thing is there's always a solution. So we'll close that here. We'll open the app. We'll need Face ID to get into the app. So we'll test that. And here we got logging data. And then we get that logged. So that's beautiful. Now we can enhance that workflow. I can remove my time delay and I can remove the login part here. And then I just run this, get the UUID on the alert, and then we'll see if that still works too, right? So this is kind of like the nice thing. You can just jump between the mobile app and the WeWeb editor. So let's say new logging v2. And we'll publish that, and then we'll see how we can get it out of the workflow into a variable so it makes it easier for us to work with that. And we want to see how we can get that working. Maybe it was just the timeout that actually improved it. Maybe we need a little bit of a timeout when the page loads. You know, everybody knows timing is everything. But we'll see. It loads. We can also look at the logs here. That's pretty cool. Cool. Isn't that cool? Look at that. They got logs over here. You can see the logs. Builds your app. Actually looks similar to the logs that Despia is using because Despia is doing actually a similar setup like WeWeb where it actually needs to install and build everything for you. That's why it takes always, also when you send it from Despia to the App Store using our compiling technology, up to 3 to 6 minutes. So we'll see. We'll open the app again. And we got to authenticate to that app because we have Face ID enabled. And now we see immediately we get it locked. So that's beautiful. So I do think that is the way how we want to set things up in WeWeb, and we'll update our documentation accordingly to that. I do think even if we have a 1 millisecond timeout, it would still work. Let's see if my theory will work. Let's publish that and see if we still get it logged. I do think it's just we need it to run after the first line. I think maybe it was a little bit too fast, and any sort of little delay, even if it's 1 millisecond, will probably solve that issue in WeWeb. We'll see if my theory is correct. I will put my code in here. I think now it was too fast. Here you go. So I do think we probably do have some timing issue here. So that little delay is probably needed, just the way maybe WeWeb communicates with that. We'll try a 100 millisecond delay, so a 1/10 of a second, and we'll deploy that again. So with WeWeb, and I think Ray will confirm that, timing is sometimes a little bit more essential to consider than it is with some of the other frameworks, right? Just because it uses, Vue.js, and, some things are different. Actually, it's a really good way to build web applications. One of the best ways. It's just, it's just a little bit different. And, that's why we solve those. Here you go. Beautiful. Almost instant. So now that we get that data, right, we figured out how we solve that stuff in WeWeb, we can also now get more access to device data, which is pretty cool. Everything that uses this principle with Despia. But now I want to get it out of here. So let's make actually a return of UUID. And let's see if we can get it out of here, right? And then when we get it out of here, I want to call this device. I want to call it device ID. I want to get it out of here, and I want to update my variable, change variable value. I take my, let's create a global variable here, right? Let's create a new one. For some reason that was undone. That's weird. Why can't I create a new one? What's going on here? Let's just close it for now. And we'll close this. We'll go back on the page. And we'll call this device. So we're logging which device this is. Every device has a unique ID. And then we go back to our page, to our page workflow. We'll now set the variable here. And we're setting the variable of device. And we're mapping this with the device ID with the result from our custom code with the little timeout delay. Beautiful. We'll deploy this. And we will see if we will now, let's see, get ID out, if we're getting it out of the custom code, right? Because we run the custom code block, but we want to get it out of there and into the variable so we can work with it in WeWeb's native NoCode conventions. So we'll see in the simulator. The cool thing, by the way, is I didn't have to rebuild the app when I make a change in WeWeb because of, the way how Despia renders those things. That's the benefit of the WK Web View, right? You do get that updates immediately because it does it remote. So I log into my app. And now I think it seems like the issue is getting it out of WeWeb with the variable. So we'll see how we solve that. Now we know we can get the data. We'll double check a few things. Actually, I don't even think the issue is getting it out. I think the issue is we just need to update where this is rendered from. Because this is, if I go on edit formula, this is rendered, no, that's the wrong one. Let's see. I have one text. There is no second text. So that was probably removed by me removing random stuff. So let's go to this text and let's add a new text field in here. And let's bind it to the variable, to the device variable. So this gets visible to us. We want to deploy the WeWeb app. Let's say device text. And because we're setting the WeWeb variable from the little custom code that we're running with Despia's SDK that gets properly rendered on the native mobile device, getting the native mobile data, getting the unique ID of the device to prevent account sharing and, prevent abuse. Now we want to see if this is successfully set in the WeWeb variable. And to make that visible, we just have that text that is based on that variable. So we look at that here. I authenticate to my app using native Face ID. And now it seems like, again, we may do have that issue in getting it out of the variable, which is interesting because we do have that text that is based on the device variable. And so we want to, see where it starts breaking. Let's look at the trigger page workflows and get the device ID. And let's look at that here. I am returning the UUID after the timeout. And we want to see what happens if I alert it. If I alert UUID in here, what is happening? And I can just comment out that it should work, right? So we'll see. If I were actually, let's see, if I were to return in quotes 1, 2, 3, and I were to lock the UUID using the alert, we'll see if that works, because my theory is this will work. It will log it, but it will not return it. So maybe we need to set it as a const and then return the const. This is just because, Despia works with a bunch of frameworks. It's just that every framework is a little bit particular in how things need to work for it to work properly with it, right? But that's just like whatever you use. So we'll close that app. We'll open that app again. I will authenticate. Here you go. And now we logged that ID, but it doesn't seem actually that we're setting that variable, which is interesting. So maybe I just made a mistake setting the variable. Let's see. Maybe WeWeb can have the return statements in a timeout, because we do the return, right? We return 1 to 3 in this example, and then I set the device variable with the result. So if I go on here, let's actually run this workflow, right? We are setting this, and it doesn't seem like we're returning something, right? If you look at this, if I were to go to the workflow here, and that may be my limited domain expertise about WeWeb, and I go outside of the workflow and I do return 3 to 1, right? I have a return 1 to 3. This should return it first, and I have 3 to 1, and I execute this. I'm getting 3 to 1. So my concern here is maybe, WeWeb is doing interesting stuff. So let's try something different. Let's create a const calling this device ID, and let's make that const. So we'll do const device ID, and then I'm going to return. So in here, I'm defining it in this timeout. And then after this timeout, I'm returning the device ID. We'll try that. Missing syntax. Did it happen doing this? Okay. Const device ID. Maybe we can't use const in here. We'll try that again. No. So here you go. I have device ID. It's not defining that. So, I need to do equals. Maybe that's it. So we'll do const device ID 1 to 3, and then I return device ID. We'll see. No. Device ID is not defined. So it seems like when I define something in WeWeb in a timeout, it's not defining it outside of the timeout. So for those things, we can use the window. So let's go to Claude real quick, and let's see how we can solve that over the window. So let's say make basic.js to set window dot Despia device ID to 1, 2, 3. Set basic.js to set window.Despia device ID to 1, 2, 3. Well, see, there's probably an easier way how we can do this using wwlib, but I'm not that good at WeWeb. We'll put that in here, and we'll see. We'll just put it on the window, so we have window.Despia.device ID, and then when we put it on the window, I'm returning the window. We'll see. That looks maybe promising. I don't know how excessive WeWeb's capability to set the window object is, but we'll see. So we do have the alert. We set it to the window. We return the window inside of here. I probably want to add an alert down here too, logging the window variable, seeing if that makes it available to us. And then I do have my response here. And in here, I would assume I get a response, and then I would set that device variable. So this is kind of like our debugging principle. We'll call this debug, and we'll publish that again. I think everybody knowing WeWeb is looking at this and shaking their head. But, you know, I haven't been using this for a while, and I got to get a little bit more used to it again. But we'll see. We'll see. Here you go. I'm learning. Uncut. We'll open that. We'll authenticate here. I got that logged, but I'm not logging anything on the window. Okay, WeWeb is weird. Let's open that again. We'll look at that. So I do have my timeout. I'm curious. What if I use WeWeb's native solution for this? Maybe I'm overthinking this with JavaScript. What if I run one in here, get device ID, right? And then I add their delay, time delay of 100 milliseconds. And then I run their custom code, custom JavaScript to return, or let's actually just add the alert for now. And I want to see if this executes, if this code runs, and then we'll just remove the variable for now. Because this would mean I would have that variable accessible outside of a block. If that is possible, I do have a solution how we can get that to work. So we'll publish that. I say workflow, and we'll publish it. And we'll see if that's how we can get Despia to talk with WeWeb. We'll see. I'm curious about this because I think if we find the best way to do those things, that will be beneficial for a lot of users and will save them a lot of time. We'll see. Yes. That's how we do it. Beautiful. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add one more step to it before I'm going to try something final. So we log that one line. We run the Despia SDK to initialize that using the window schema, using the URL schema. We'll add the native WeWeb delay, and then we're logging this. So what happens now if I define a const, and maybe I'm actually thinking too codey here, but I do const device ID equals UUID, and then I'm going to alert device ID. I want to see if I can do this data transfer and if I can then define it, because then I know I can return it, right? So we'll do that. We'll close that. We'll deploy this, and we'll try again. We'll say new. If I can get this logged, I can get it out of there. You know, sometimes it's not about like getting the stuff. It's about getting it out of it, like and getting it into their NoCode variables and in their NoCode conventions. But we'll try that again. We'll open this. We'll authenticate with Face ID and the debugger. And yes, so this means I can get it out of there. And if I can get it out of there, I can get it into something. So in here, I would just change this to be a return statement for device ID. I like the const so I don't lose it, right? And maybe we can see if we can reduce that later on too, but I return the device ID. And then I will just call this UUID. As an example, the unique device ID. Well, it's not really UUID, but you know what I mean. And then I'm going to change variable value. I'll take my variable that is called device, and the value will come from the result of the UUID of logging the device ID. And then we'll deploy this, and we'll see if that data transfer hopefully works, right? And this is how we get it into the WeWeb variable. We'll see. It's a little bit simpler in total. But, you know, now that we know how to deal with those things, oh, I'm opening Xano and all that stuff now. Now that we know how it works, it'll be also simple in WeWeb. It's just about if you know how to do those things in those tools, they'll get way simpler. And now you see we get the ID inside of here. So this beautifully works. This is, think about it, this is pretty cool. I was just overcomplicating it with custom code. We can get, so WeWeb can call something that is going to talk to the phone, and the phone is sharing that device that's kind of like sensitive data, that device ID with WeWeb using the JavaScript variable schema that we're using. And then we use the WeWeb workflow to get it into the WeWeb variable. Now, to show you this, we have it bound to text. The user will probably not need to see their device ID, but this gets now interesting for you because you have it in the variable. You can send it from there to your backend using an API call, using the integration. You can store it wherever. You can do with it whatever you want to do. That device ID particularly gets interesting when you get it into the database. And the same thing, same principle now will work for getting the one signal player ID for push notifications and all that stuff. And that's how we set it up. And it took a little bit of trial and error, but this is the winning formula. We'll run the JavaScript to initiate the process. We'll add the native WeWeb timeout. We're going to then define a const with our Despia JavaScript variable. We're going to return that const, and then we're going to name that workflow so we can find it easier. Then we set our variable, and then we're going to base it on that result, which we're not going to see, so we can add more code to kind of like have a test value in there and all that kind of stuff. And that's how we get that data in our mobile app in the variable, and we can send it to the backend, and then we can, triggering native stuff is quite frankly a little bit easier. As you can see here, here you go. We'll wait for the WeWeb notification. Here you go. Look at that. We got all those cool things. If I open that app, I'll be also able to get the device ID, and you have way more cool stuff available to you. And I do though have to update one thing. We got to make the padding a little bit different because that is making me crazy. So we'll go back on here, and this needs to be, this needs to have, where's the bottom? Bottom needs to be like 25. Let's make this 2 rem. Do they support rem? Yeah, here you go. Let's try that. And let's deploy this. And you could then make this even conditional based on the user agent, right? You can do things like, hey, if the user agent includes Despia, add another 2 rem to the bottom. So, it will adjust it. Or if it is iPad, don't do it. Or, something like this. So that is actually pretty cool how you can customize those experiences. Now, if I open that, I got my native Face ID functionality in my WeWeb application. I can see, yeah, that's beautiful. Look at that. I get the native device ID logged inside of my WeWeb app, and I can then write all the logic that will work with those things inside of WeWeb, and I can trigger native logic inside of WeWeb like I do here with a custom workflow that will send a push notification using the action. You can also use Despia's API to send remote push notifications from your server, Supabase, Zapier, Xano, whatever you want to use. Custom coded backends, you can do all of that things. Click on there, you can open them. Beautiful. That's how you make a real native mobile application inside of WeWeb. And now we want to get that, probably not be approved because look at that utility here, but we want to get it now to the App Store. The way we do that is super simple, and Despia makes it super easy. Let's just close Xcode real quick because I just deleted everything. So we'll just close that. We'll close Discord too. And we're going to open this. Yeah, okay, I know, I deleted this on purpose. And let's just send this to the App Store. So we're going to go to our certificates, identifiers, and profiles on our Apple developer account. And we're going to create a new app ID and register an app in here. Now, we need to register this for our Despia bundle ID. So for this, I'm always opening the wrong thing. Let's go back to Despia and make sure to reload the page so everything works well. Beautiful. We go on Export iOS Project and we go on Auto Publishing. That's how we can send it to the App Store over the cloud. So in here we see, and also we have it on here too, we get the bundle ID and we'll copy the bundle ID for this application so Despia can identify it. Now in here, we go back to certificates. Under bundle ID, we make explicit, and we'll put our Despia bundle ID in here. Now we need to allow a few capabilities. We need to allow app attest, we need to allow app groups, and we need to allow push notifications broadcast. Where did it go? Push notifications broadcast capability. Then we're going to scroll up, and I think we need to add a description. We'll say WeWeb as an example. Now we're going to continue, register, and now we got that identifier. Now we have the bundle ID. Now we need to create a new identifier. There will be an app group for our OneSignal push notification SDK to send GDPR compliant push notifications from your server targeting the device. Now we got to go on continue, and that description will be app group for WeWeb. Maybe I can't use those. Here you go. And now the identifier, we need to take the one that Despia gave us. So we'll copy our app group. Beautiful. And now we are going back to our identifier, putting that in here, continue, register, and that's how we got that registered. Now I want to go back to my bundle IDs, so I just remove that part of Apple's URL, and I go to my WeWeb application, and I'm going to now simply just, go back to the app groups, go on configure, and I'm going to choose the app group for WeWeb. I'm going to continue, and that is basically it. Then I want to save this change, confirm the change, and that is basically everything I need to do. Now I can go to my App Store Connect account and create a new app. We'll call this WeWeb Demo as an example. Oh, WeWeb Demo. Now I can say for iOS, this will include iPadOS and Vision OS, so you can get it on the Apple Vision Pro 2. And then we do English US or whatever your language is, and we'll take the bundle ID for this WeWeb application that we created. The bundle ID is kind of like the unique identifier for a mobile app. And then the SKU can be anything really. WeWeb, this is just a storekeeping unit that helps you internally identify which app was purchased, for example, with Apple server-side events. I do full access, and then I create my application. Now, after I create my application, I'll be redirected to it, and I want to go to app information, and I want to copy my Apple ID for the app. Now I go back to Despia, and I'm going to go to auto publish, link my App Store app ID inside of here, select my development team. If you don't already know how to set up the development team, how to do automated publishing, there will be a video in the video description below that will help you set that up, but I already have it set up. Now I click one click, and within 6 minutes, right now what we're doing is we'll send this to a Mac M2 that runs somewhere randomly on the world, and now it completed, meaning it sent it, but it now still takes 6 minutes to process. So it sends it now to a Mac M2, a Mac Mini M2, where it builds that mobile application for you on a virtual Xcode computer, right? And it's going to then so this way you don't need any Apple hardware to build your mobile app if you don't have one. And it's going to build that. It's going to, do everything it needs to do with the 2000 files, configure everything for you automatically. And then it's going to send it to App Store Connect, where it does most of the pre-processing for your app. So you only have to do 2 clicks to get it in there for public beta testing if you like, or click another button, upload some nice screenshots, write a nice product description, boom, and it's on the App Store. And App Review loves Despia apps because, as you can see, you have native functionalities. It's a real mobile app. You have native access to data on the device. You have native access to sending native things like Face ID, push notifications, even server-side push notifications, right? You can do haptic feedback, so you can make the phone vibrate if they click a button. You can get their player ID. You can do in-app purchases. You can, share dynamic content. You have the native spinner, get the native device ID, get the native, Apple tracking status consent, do an app reset, and, have access to the camera roll, sell in-app subscriptions, get the user's currency, have screen scanning mode, even a native WhatsApp integration that's coming probably tomorrow, and much, much more. So there's a lot of exciting stuff. And let's wait a little bit. We'll make a little cut here, and then after this, I'll be right back, and we'll see that it was, I'm not touching anything in the meantime. It was automatically all sent to the App Store. So now magic happened. As you can see on our screen here, the build was successful. Now, let me show you how you find this place, because that may have not been clear. So let's go to apps real quick. And we want to click on our app that we built inside of here. So we want to click on here. We want to go on test flight. That is Apple's distribution system for beta and draft apps. And now under iOS builds, you see your build in here. Now it's saying missing compliance. This sounds alarming. So I want to click on manage. It's asking about app encryption documentation. What type of encryption algorithms does your app use? For example, you have internal standard. We're not doing that, right? And then standard encryption algorithms. We don't use them, both algorithms. We don't use any algorithms. Now, if you use one, you want to update that on your information page. But I'm not using any one. My app isn't secure, so I'm saving that here. It doesn't matter, how your app is tracking people, what algorithms it's using. Too badly, it's just that Apple needs to know those informations before they let you get it out there, so that they're at least aware of what is going on with here. And now, because you see me already looking at my phone, I should be able any minute now, after I cleared this thing, to be able to get that test email. But actually, I need to create an internal testing group. So for that, I'll create an internal testing group. I'll call this WeWeb. I'm going to create one, and I'm going to assign a user to it. So in here, I'm going to invite my account. Here you go. Now you see I'm invited to this group. And now, as you can see, I got an email from Test Flight saying, hey, you're invited. You can test the app right now. So I click on this email. It opens the Test Flight app. I need to make sure I have it installed. It's kind of like my private app store before I send it to the app store, so I can test the app on my device. And I click on install. Now it is installing the application, and then I'll be able to have that app running on my iPhone. Now I can go back to my iPhone here. Let me show you that. And as you can see, I got the WeWeb app inside of here. The WeWeb app is right inside of here. I can click on it. It opens the app. I allow all that stuff. Here you go. Allow. It needs to scan my face. Otherwise, I won't be able to get to the app. And now if I say try Face ID again, and it doesn't validate it, right? And I put my password in here, and I put a wrong password, look what happens. Your iPhone is locked. This NoCode application has the ability, if fraudulent activity is detected, to lock my whole entire iPhone. I can't use it right now. This is the one of the proofs that I like to show that Despia is a real mobile application. Most of those web views can't do that. PWA Builder can't do that. WebView apps can't do that. Despia is a real mobile application that has native device access, that has native security functions built in. It uses a web view. Sure, it's not a web view app. It uses a WK web view in rendering the HTML, because that's the only way how you can render HTML in a mobile app. But all the functionality, all the logic underlying, that is happening in Swift. That is happening in Apple's native device language. And my iPhone is blocked right now. That's the power of Despia. Now it's unlocked. So we want to open that real quick. Here we go. I unlock my app. Now Face ID was successful. And now, as you can see, I get my unique device ID. I don't know if I should show that in here. And then I get the test thing. So let's actually go in here. Let's open that app, scan my face, got that in here. Let's trigger the push notification. Let's click on it a few times. Oops. Here you go. And let's see. And now I got my push notifications. Look at that. Here you go. Click on the wrong thing. It opens the app. So here you go. Now I will have, in 10 seconds, I'll get one more. Oh, actually, yeah, here you go. Now it came. It always comes if I want to look at it, and if I doubt it, it always comes. But here you go. Native mobile application built in WeWeb. There you have it. That's how you build those exciting, cool things, and you can get it on the App Store. You have it on test flight right now. If you want to get it to the App Store, that is also pretty simple. Let me show you how you can do that. You just go on distribution, and you're going to take your version 1, prepare for submission. You would upload your screenshots. You would write your promotional text. You would add your description, add your keywords, add your support URL, add your marketing URL, add your copyright. Then you add your build. You take this version, right? And then you would send this for review. Now, we can't send it for review yet because we also need to add app privacy. So we need to add our privacy policy. But besides that, you would go in here under iOS app, add it for review, and then it will be reviewed by the app team. And if your app doesn't look terrible, you'll get approval within about a week, and then you'll have it on the App Store. And if there should ever happen something where Apple rejects your app for whatever reason, which they don't usually, but maybe it's something, they don't like your interface, they don't like your UI, whatever, please make sure to reach out to us, and we'll help you get anything resolved with Apple or Google, and we'll help you make sure that your app gets to the App Store. That's my personal promise to you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. And now you know how to make a mobile app inside of WeWeb. It's super simple. It's super easy. You can do it right now and with the help of Despia. So if you want to check it out, I would highly suggest you go to Despia.com and, get started. And, your mobile app is right across the room. It's right there in front of you. It literally takes less than an hour to set up, as you saw today. You can have it for your client, for yourself, on test flight, for internal testing, in an hour, and then you can publish it to the App Store in a click. And because it is a native mobile app, it does have one of the highest approval rate in the industry. It's not a web view. It uses web view technology to render HTML, even though there is a lot of magic that we do with it. But it is a native mobile application, Swift or Java, for, whatever the native programming language is, giving you a lot of benefits because you do have access to those native SDKs. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. And